Hello! You can tell that the weather has really taken a turn, down to about 20-degree days, and there's that kind of cool autumn chill kind of building. You can feel it coming. What I wanted to kind of share with you and show you are a couple little jobs that you can do for late summer going into autumn. If you, like me, when I was starting out, I would go on RHS or any other kind of website, and it would give you gardening jobs to do weekly, which is fine if you have, the kind of schedule, the discipline, the time to go and do those types of gardening jobs weekly. I kind of want to preface this by saying I think that you can manage and maintain a beautiful garden in simply 5 days each and every single year. So for me, that is a kind of early spring gardening day. Then what you want to do is you kind of want that early summer, end of spring, early summer. That's where you're clearing, you're snipping away. Your third day, okay, I think is midsummer. I do think midsummer requires its own day because there's a lot happening. Your fourth day, okay, would be this one. This, I would say, is your late summer into autumn gardening day. What do you do on this day? You go and you snip all your shrubs. You're essentially starting to, as nature starts to slow down, you're kind of starting to gently tuck away your plants. You're starting to kind of gently get them ready for bed, okay? So when you prune in spring, you're kind of, most of the time, you're encouraging growth. And when you're pruning in autumn, of course, you are, in a sense, inhibiting or stopping growth, okay? So you're snipping your shrubs. That's what we're going to do a little bit of today. You're repotting. So over a good growing season, you might find that your plants, anything that you've got in pots, is starting to get a little bit too cozy for your liking. And there's a couple of ways that you can kind of quickly identify whether that's happening, and I'll show you what to do. That we're going to tackle first, okay? Third thing, you kind of want to go around, you want to snip stuff, you want to tidy up. Remember, this is the time of year that pests, for example, slugs, they're kind of getting about, they're laying their eggs everywhere. They're doing their thing. Mother Nature is taking its course. So if you want a natural kind of remedy, you want to go organic in terms of gardening, then if you clean up debris and you start doing it now, you'll be less overwhelmed at the end of autumn, okay? And you can kind of mitigate and kind of start that natural pest control. And of course, a couple of little jobs that I absolutely love. So if you took cuttings at the start of spring or at the start of summer, what you might find now is those little cuttings have taken root, and if you've put multiples in pots, they've grown a little bit, they're doing well. Now is a great time to split them up and start to put them in their own individual pots so they can continue to develop their root system and give you really nice, healthy plants to plant out for next spring, okay? At this time of year, it's probably one of the last good times of the year to take cuttings of certain things, okay? So if you really want to make multiples of things, you want to propagate, now is also a very good time for that. And I'm going to show you with a couple of pelargoniums. Keep them in your windowsill, even in your bedroom, in your kitchen. They're lovely. Final job that is fantastic to do at this time of year is to go and do some weeding and slightly scarify and crush up your soil, okay? Kind of like you're maintaining a wildflower meadow. Why would we want to do that? Well, in my garden, for example, we've got verbena, and I love verbena, and it self-seeds freely everywhere. It attracts bees, it attracts butterflies, it blows gently in the wind. It's a fantastic plant, and I want more of it. So I let the seed heads on the plant. However, what I want to ensure is that those seeds have some really nice soil to kind of bury themselves into and give me a better chance of coming from seed next year. And for that, what I need is bare earth, and I need it slightly ruffled and scarified, okay? So I'll show you quickly as well how to do that. And as well, into this late summer autumn period, we can get a start on planting and or moving shrubs, okay? It gives a chance that while the temperature is still a little bit warm, gives a chance for those roots to settle and maybe even develop a little bit before winter comes, okay? So now is also a great time for that, and I'll be moving a cistus That I guess I just planted in the wrong spot. I gave it a go and it didn't work. So I'll show you how to do that as well. Right, so we're down in the earth, close to the ground, right where gardeners belong. Now you can see this is a lilac, Syringa vulgaris. Now, I've probably let this stay in this pot maybe 6 months too long. I probably should have done this at the start of spring, which is also a good time to do this. However, if you haven't, now is a good time. So, I want to talk to you quickly, and I'm trying to be quick. So how to tell whether your plant needs a new pot and you need to kind of upgrade, okay? Now, I know typically what is an easy tell is that the roots are all coming out the bottom, okay? You want to try and avoid getting to that stage. If you're at that stage, you're a little bit too far gone, but you can still save your plant. It's absolutely fine, okay? Key tells: it needs to be watered often. You'll water it in the morning, and by the afternoon it's as if you've never watered it at all. There is not enough soil left in that pot to hold moisture, to hold all that water you're putting in. It's been taken up by all that root system. That is the majority of what's left in your pot, and your plant, in a sense, is a little bit sad, okay? So that is probably the core tell. Once you really know what to look for, like, you know, droopy leaves, that sort of thing, then you'll kind of start to understand what your plant is trying to communicate to you. So in the case of this lilac, we can see quite big. Okay, now lilacs want to be quite big. So what we're going to do very easily is we're going to put it into this. Now this might not be a permanent home. Lilacs really want to be planted into the ground, but look, if you've gotten hand of something, now this was actually a gift from a very kind neighbor down the road, and I said I would take it. Just, you know, because I have a problem. I'm addicted, if you can't tell. Now this pot doesn't look great, but it serves more of a utility. You know, you might find these, you know, kind of specialist garden centers growing, you know, trees or olives, things like that. You know, these are a very good kind of serve a purpose kind of pot, and they're just very good things to have around. You know, you can always kind of either get maybe a nice pot cover for it, but do understand that's kind of a tradesman thing. That is not meant to be the permanent spot, and I still don't know where or what I want to do with this lilac, so we're going to put it in there. If you are gardening by yourself, you don't have anyone strong or multiple people to help you, you want to be doing this where you will want this to be, so you don't have to move it, okay? However, if you have a kind of moving trolley, and it's a good thing depending on, you know, if you're an advanced aged gardener, I try and say that as politely as possible, you might want to look into getting that, because of course it's going to save you bending over, picking things up. Even me now, you know, it can be quite a chore sometimes. So if you've got one of those, then feel free to do this repotting wherever you feel comfortable. However, if you don't, and you then won't find yourself able to move this very large thing, it'll be very heavy because we've also got to stick the plant in it, remember, then do this where you will end up. Right, so getting very large plants, especially shrubs, out of pots that they've overgrown is extremely difficult. Like, you cannot get a shovel in there, you can't get much of anything in there, okay? Your best friend will be something like this, okay? Yeah? Do we all know what this is? It's not a weapon. Don't use it as a weapon. It's a bread knife, okay? This channel still is, in a sense, kid-friendly. If you're too young to wield this on your own, get an older person. If you're an old person who's trying to show their child how to garden, do certain things, well, you know, be very careful. So, Carrie, you say, but, you know, haven't seen any bread yet. Well, this is the perfect instrument to get your overgrown plant out of your pot. First things first, to make it easy, because I also have to try and film this for you, we're going to put this on its side. Now, again, because of the time of year we are in, it is quite alright if a couple of stems break. What you want to do
is you want to get your knife and wedge it, and you can actually see how easy that is. So again, get the knife in, down the side, and I'll show you from the reverse angle. So knife goes in, take that out, and you cut as if you were slicing a lovely loaf, whatever your preference is. And I hope you can see just how easy that is. You don't even have to lift the pot. Lay it on its side, cut around, flip it over, cut the other side. I'm going to show you how easily this thing comes out. Right, so we've cut one side, we rolled it, we cut down the other side. Now flip it back up, and it should just kind of pop out. You might need to do some jigging. And there you go. Bread knife technique. I mean, look at that. It's a perfect bloody cylinder. It's heavy. Ugh. That's kind of just like planting anything else, just kind of upsize a little bit. So I've put the old pot in front just so you can see just how much bigger. Right, so that frees up a pot. It also frees up a bread knife. Right, so sometimes still in the garden, I mean, I like to experiment and try. Now there was a little site in this border behind me where I thought I might be able to get away with planting a cistus or a Cretian rock rose, and I'll try and get one on the screen. Now you've seen me plant them in the very dry, very sunny window borders, probably in my first ever video on this channel. And I planted one here. Now you see how dark it is, like right there-ish. There's a little front bit where, little front bit that I was trying to, you know, redo. Well, I also realized I wanted more autumn color. So there's a little haul that is waiting for a future video. Basically, I thought there would be enough sun there. I was looking at it in like spring. I was like, it's enough sun maybe to try Cretian rock rose, and I think it'd be pretty cool there. It's long flowering, it's a really nice plant, blah blah blah. It flowered, it did okay. It's not doing great. And how do I know it's not doing great? I know it's not doing great because it's starting to get leggy. What that means is that all the foliage is starting to grow towards the top of the plant, and at the base of this plant you're starting to get those woody sticks. Okay, so that's kind of what it means by leggy. The base of that plant is not really rich and dense in foliage. The other thing it's doing is it's really angling, trying to get more sun and more sun. There never will be enough sun there unless we were to cut all the trees. We're not going to do that. So as a gardener, you kind of are on the precipice of a decision, or as a gardener you're facing a decision here. Do you keep the plant there in this position and it kind of just chugs along? It's fine, does its thing, but it's not doing its best. Or do you take it out and you rethink the whole thing? Maybe you move it, you put it in a pot, you put it as a patio, nice little shrub on the patio. Or do you have another place in the garden for it? I'm inclined more towards the latter and see it as an opportunity to try something different. Okay, tried something, didn't work out, that's fine. And I'd rather do it now than the plant become leggier and then we struggle to save it. Okay, or worse yet, it does winter there and it doesn't survive winter. Okay, so this is a very good time of year to start to think about this, and I would say actually in a few weeks is probably the best time to really get stuck in there and start mixing around with different root balls and digging things up, taking shrubs out and moving them around. Okay, but because the weather's really quite mild, I'm doing this one today. This is our cistus, and what will be our new little kind of perennial area. Looks pretty good, right? Until you realize it's planted back here, getting leggy, as you can see, and it's really angled. Really angled. So when you're doing this, as always, I mean, we got to move that. I think the idea of a rockery type thing here is long over. This is going to be a lovely perennially woodlandy thing here. Okay, so now as always, I mean, don't worry too much. If you step on something at this time of year, it should be fine. You know, there's only one way it can go at this time of year really, and that is down back into the earth. But as always, try and get as much root ball as you can. The more roots that we can keep on the plant, the better. And of course, you've probably seen this a million times, but start off by going with a circle, probably more than what you think, and we can always dust off. Oh, sorry about that, viewers. We can always dust off the soil that we think might be excessive, but it's always better to err on the side of caution with this particular part. So once you're at this stage, slowly start to get in, okay, with those types of moves, and start to kind of wiggle and jiggle, and slowly try and get under what you think is the root ball. And again, the deeper you can get, the better. And you can see on an established shrub, this is probably my most hated gardening job, is moving an established shrub, because the circle that you have to dig, the depth at which you have to dig. This we just planted kind of at the end of spring this year, so there's not much more than the original pot it came in, and you can kind of feel it. I gently tease, and there you have it. You know, it's not bad, but you can see how forward this is growing. Look at it behind here. Really, you know, it wants to be like that. Nice, proud, lovely upwards facing bush. So that's how you know you've planted something where you've not given it enough sun. How do I know if my plant's not getting enough sun? I'm going to quickly show you. That's how it was facing. That's towards the sun. Really, it should be like this. Yeah? Because that's how they look at the garden centre, right? It's not the worst condition for a plant that I've ever seen. It could have kind of kept trolling along, it would have kept growing forward, and at some point it would have found the light that it wants. However, you've got this real big bare patch of plant at the back, and it's just, we can do better. And we can also serve the plant better. I mean, let's not forget, you know, I kind of get emotionally attached to the plants. It's horrible. It's like I have 50 million children back here. So we're going to pot this up, and the patio, thankfully, is right in the line of sun. So this should do a lot better there. Sometimes plastic does serve a purpose. When you open up your potting mix bag like this, it gives you a nice real area to work. So we've got our Regency style pot from the lilac And I think that this is Cistus pulverentulus, if I remember correctly, and that gives us this beautiful, real kind of vivid purple flower, which I think would look awesome in the grey of this pot on the patio. So you're going to put it in here. Now, if you're doing this, you might find that rather than a plant with a deep root system, you've got one with a kind of this wide root system. What do? You have to kind of gently tease out the kind of exterior roots. So if I can show you without making too much of a mess. Do you see how everything's kind of sprawling outwards? I mean, this is kind of telling you that Cistus, hello, this is kind of telling you that Cistus doesn't necessarily need a deep pot, but I want to put it in one. So we're going to do our best, but you kind of just gently tease, gently tease, gently tease, gently tease. We're going to lose some roots, but try and keep as many attached as you can. And you'll see that as we shift that soil, and we loosen, okay, the weight of that is what's keeping everything out. But of course, as we take away soil, it becomes less weighted. The roots start to go down. Okay, which is going to be great when we plant it in our pot. Right, so that should fit. Non-sponsored video, horticultural alpine grit. When it comes to herbs, when it comes to lavender, when it comes to these Mediterranean things like the Cretan rock rose, you want them to be beautiful, you want them to grow really, really well. Understand that some people like to do 30% grit, some people 40, some people 50, some people maybe even more, okay? You can't really lose the more you put, and it is worth it. When you consider the price of a bag of this, as opposed to the price of the plant that you really, really want to grow nice, big, beautiful, and remind you of being somewhere else, it's worth it, okay? Remember, the more soil you have in this pot or in the ground, soil is what holds water. Rocks don't hold water. They don't become soggy, they don't become soaked, they don't become wet. Okay, these plants want water to literally run right through. They want the water to run through, the roots want to take up what water they want, and they want it gone. They never want to see it again. Like a good guest, it comes by, says hello to you, says, I don't know, whatever guests say, we don't have many guests, and then instantly leaves without it getting awkward. That is exactly how the soil of your rock roses, your lavenders, and all your herbs should be. Like we're making a big soup. Now, I think a lot of you get this wrong. You mix everything up at the base, about halfway up the pot, you put a load of grit, you put some good soil, then you put your compost on, and you don't keep mixing. You need to keep mixing. You really need to keep mixing and put more grit. Remember, that plant's roots are only going to be about, you know, those plants' roots start here. You want them to grow in here, but they're not going to grow in here where all your good stuff is if you've not given them the same good quality stuff that they want up here. Your plant will get too wet and it won't survive. So make sure that you keep bringing that grit to the top. Keep putting more. Don't think this is a waste, because, you know, lavender, at the end of the day, this is Britain. Lavender, what, you know, bloody wet here, bloody cold, okay? So lavender is never going to be beautiful like it's going to be in the south of France, okay? So chances are we're going to have to buy lavender again.
the spent soil in this, with all the grit and kind of the nutrients taken out, that stuff is perfect for lavender. You know, you might want to add a bit of new stuff to it, but this isn't going to go to waste. You can keep using this, even if it's not for this specific plant. We might take this out and plant it in the garden at some point, okay? So you're never really going to lose this. It's a good thing to have. The spent stuff in here after a while is a good thing to have. Now you can really see how our plant is really angling towards the sun. If you've got something like this and you want to fix it, don't plant it in the pot like this. I mean, it'll slowly, boom, start to do that, but there's quite a bit of weight down there, all the green there. So we actually want to plant it on an angle, okay? And I'll show you how we're going to do that. So that's how it was in the ground. What we actually want to do is somewhat bring it up like this. Just a little bit, just to help it out. You see the difference? Boom and boom. Not all the way, because then we've got our root ball here exposed. So we'll angle it a little bit and help it out slightly. So there we go. Oh, there we go. See what I mean? Just a little bit more up, a little bit more upright. But this in a pot, I mean, I've seen these in pots, they're absolutely stunning. So yeah. Anyway, hope you found that helpful as well. You know, don't be scared to get a little bit rough and vigorous with your things at this time of year. Really good time to do it. If you see that the weather's going to be quite mild for like maybe a fortnight, then yeah, maybe you can do it now. Be a bit more liberal with your shrubs. So if at spring or early summer, or whenever really, you put your little cuttings into a pot like this, you can see I've got 2 little Centranthus rubus, and if you've been watching or if you saw my last video about gardening made easy, it's like 7 of the best plants to kind of have, super low maintenance or even no maintenance plants. You would have seen that this garden variety of valerian was in that video, and these 2 cuttings, I mean, don't tell anybody, but between you and me, they were not from my garden. So now is a great time to actually separate these. So you tease them out of the pot, and you can see now, if you missed it and you want to see it again, bread knife time. Simply cut just like that. And you simply pot them on like you would any other plant. I've got these 2. Now, I will say that having these little terracotta pots is great. It's fantastic. Get some. These can be picked up quite cheaply, local garden centres, even home base, you know, B&Q, those types of places. But what they do is they add that real charm and character to your kind of workflow in the garden. You know, we might think, you know, we don't need to have that type of thing. Let's just reuse the old plastic pots that we bought plants in the first place. Reusing plastic is vital to our future on this planet. I agree 100%. I try and reuse plastic where and when I can, okay? But there is something about a little bit of charm with this. And even if you don't use them, you can break them and use them as crocks for the bottom of your pots. But I just think it's so charming just to see loads of little tiny terracotta pots with little things just starting their life in them. I just think it looks very sweet. I guess a luxury, but maybe worth considering for you at home. So another little tip actually,
you can see that, you know, everywhere shows you to plant them on the edges of your pot. So you slide in the little cutting right there. I'm sure you've seen it. I'm sure you have. You end up with this. Do you see? That's our cutting stem, and you can see where it's started to grow its roots. We don't pot it on like that again. Don't do this. You now flip it, so you have that original cutting now in the middle of the pot. This will give a chance for that root base to develop all around the plant, give you a much more stable plant, okay? Because those roots, not only do they uptake nutrients, but they act as an anchor. Right, so we're going to need those and the gloves. Oh, coming off. Boom. So I like to feel. There's no assistant there. They're just gone now. I like to feel things. I don't like really wearing gloves. You can see behind me, there, is an Elaeagnus. Pretty much evergreen shrub. Big ball of green, I like to call them. We've got a few things here. Loads of green things. Loads of big bally green things. Evergreen things. Okay. Now, probably not my favourite thing, but they're evergreen. They can provide shelter, home for birds and wildlife. And they do give a garden some rhythm and structure all year round. They're there in winter, they are there in spring, they're there in summer, they are there in autumn. Okay? If you want your garden looking the best it can be, 365 days a year, regular clipping. Me, on the other hand, I'm not in here, I'm not out here every day, and it's a bloody big garden. So when it gets to this stage, when it gets about this time in autumn, that's when I cut it. I cut it maybe I cut it late spring once, and then around this time of year I cut it again. Okay, so it has the opportunity to bush out. Now if I wanted to, I could probably do it a third time somewhere between those two ends. Okay, but because I cloud pruned it, okay, it used to be a big kind of floating ball and it looked really cool. It was getting a bit too big and unwieldy and taking up a lot of space. Tricky. So it's become this kind of dome thing, umbrella, if you will. Okay, so we're just going to simply go in and reshape it. I will say this is probably one of my absolute favourite gardening jobs. You can put some headphones in, you can listen to a podcast, or you can just listen to nothing. And on afternoons like this, when all I can hear is literally the chirping of birds, the wind running through the grasses, it is so meditative. So I know a lot of you probably hate this type of work, really don't like this type of job. But if you hopefully can find the right afternoon, the right time for it, and just be, and just cut, I think you'll have a good time, or even listen to a podcast or something, you know. Now, in terms of tools, a lot of people have electric things. You're going to think I'm mad. I use these. When I took this from a big bowl to this umbrella, I used these. I don't know why. I just like it. I like it that way. Of course, it takes longer. It's harder. But in a way, that's kind of what I like. It just feels more natural to do it this way to me. So you can see, we want to kind of shape. There's some bits when I did this that needed to fill in. Now, this had been left almost in a sense neglected for a while. It wasn't pruned correctly. So with that comes a couple of patches. Now you just kind of got to wait for that to kind of fill up, and you can see it filling. So key things with this: reshape, shape however you want. Okay, and as well, I don't know if you can see, but there's lots of little shoots coming. Elaeagnus will grow from old wood. That is what makes it so prolific as a kind of evergreen hedge or an evergreen shrub. Okay, so you want to take the new stuff out that's growing from the base if you want to maintain your kind of cloud shapes. Okay,
I I don't think so. No, 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 no. Maybe someday you'll have it your way. Maybe someday it'll all work out. Until then, nope, a nope, a nope, a nope, definitely nope, a nope, nope, a nope, probably.
Cut back to the framework, quite easy. So you may have noticed, I started cutting as well the geranium. Brachioglottis needs to be cut back as well, so your summer flowering stuff, if you've not cut them back now, if you've not cut them back already, your summer flowering shrubs, summer flowering perennials, cut, cut, cut. Now is still a good time to do it, okay, if you've missed out. Now, with all your pruning, you're left with this. Compost heap is fine. Little Robin's just checking out the work. How is it? He's gone. I don't think he liked it. But, with a lot of this stuff at this time of year, and of course gathering old leaves, it's the green stuff plus leaves that make you great compost. However, don't forget, our native animals, our little guys like hedgehogs, need shelter. Birds need fine little twigs to make nests and shelter. So I do encourage all the gardeners out there, don't use all this to make yourself some awesome compost. Leave it out, make little mounds, make little huts where hedgehogs can go and rest in the bitterness of the cold, or any of the local wildlife. Okay, that as well is vital. Don't let it be forgotten. Stuff like this from your evergreen shrubs makes perfect homes. Okay, so don't just kind of compost it all or discard of it all. Save some, build little areas around your garden that will attract local wildlife, and in doing so, of course, hedgehogs are probably one of the best natural preventatives for a slug infestation. So this is a beautiful Pittosporum, Queen Elizabeth, something like that. So, these things will get big. This will keep going, keep going, keep going. But you can kind of see what it does, especially because it's under a tree, and sometimes we plant things close together, and when it comes to shrubs, and they might look good for the first 10 years, and a lot of people will find in their kind of buy a new home and the garden's not being looked after for a while, you'll find something like this where it's been 20 years, 30 years, and the shrubs have just boom, gotten really, 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 really big. You've got two options. You either take them out, or you cut. Now, as I said, evergreen stuff, although sometimes doesn't flower and whatnot, at least it stays green, gives us kind of this structure, almost like columns. When you think of Grecian or Roman columns, that's kind of what they do. You can kind of see, but when it gets like this, it's too heavy. Your eyes stop there. It's a big block. You don't want that. You still want your eyes to freely move. You want this to, in a sense, be open. So that means for us, a heavier prune. This is the kind of last time of the year, these kind of next couple of weeks, in which you can kind of cut Pittosporum safely. Also, we want to be conscious of the view from spring. Now, most of the time in the early spring, the view is from the left of camera, and we look out that way. That's a forsythia there. If you're familiar with forsythia, it makes beautiful golden yellow flowers. This Pittosporum and that viburnum will stop us from being able to see those beautiful, beautiful flowers. And then you have to ask the question, well, why is it there if in spring we can't enjoy the beautiful forsythia flowers? So we'll still have the Pittosporum that we can almost see through it. Right, so there we have it. Little squat thing. It's floating. Floating just means that you take all the lower stuff out. So basically your plants can kind of nicely grow under uninhibited and gives you this kind of cloud floating effect. We can see it from there. Nice, I think we did a good job. Right, so I'm going to make this super succinct for you. So when it comes to pruning your evergreen stuff, okay, halfway next year expect side shoots, okay? If you want something to get bushier in an area, you cut there. If you want to stop something from growing in a direction, you cut all the way there. Now do you see? Not here, not here, not here, all the way, as low as you can go to that main stem, okay? If you do that, you'll have great shrubs and your pruning will be excellent. I like to leave some of the debris, as I said, for wildlife. I put that out at the boundary, the fence line. Provides good little shelter. As well, birds can take and choose what they want. With the other cut stuff, I do tend to leave it out if, again, any wildlife birds kind of wants to peck at it, or as well if any insects are present and kind of wanted to make a run for it before we compost it or do whatever. Now with this viburnum, I'm going to take it down, but I think this video is already going too long, but that's going to get a mad heavy prune. Okay, just really open up the area, give room for the little Caryopteris that's down there and a couple of other plants. Give them a bit more light, a bit more space to grow, because they're a bit more interesting than a big green ball. There is one last job that I quickly want to show you. And that is doing a little bit of scarification or roughing up the soil a little bit. Super easy, but it can yield some great results for you. So out to the front meadow and I'll show you. Can you believe I poked my eye in between now and the last clip? But I just want to say, actually, Pelargonium makes for a pretty good little soft wood cutting. So if you strip those leaves, you can treat them as any other cutting. You can make more of them. But the other thing as well is that Pelargonium, I mean, I'll take those lower leaves off, but it's a great addition to little flower arrangements. You can see it with this dahlia, totally tangerine. But those black stems are fantastic. Of course, you have that leaf variegation. So they can be a welcome addition to vases, displays. I just like keeping little cups of flowers everywhere. Well, they can be quite aesthetic as well. In a nice little jug or vase. Just a nice little pop of the outdoors. So this is the last gardening job I wanted to show you. Notice how we have all this verbena. This whole entire bit has self-seeded, right? So I kind of treat this under here. This is getting really big and beautiful. But basically I treat under here like I would a wildflower meadow. So this is actually the time of year where you start to chop, boom, all down, right? Rough the soil up, let the seeds drop in there, and boom, ready for next year. So I use that kind of wildflower principle here. So for the best chance of getting things to seed, let's say for example, you know, you've got verbena or something else that likes to kind of self-seed itself. How do you ensure the best environment for that, or hopefully guarantee that that happens? Come into the border, for example, and you start weeding. And you can see, you know, I've got a couple weeds in here and I don't really mind it. A bit of grass, because in some areas we keep the grass long for wildlife and it self-seeds as well. But basically what you want to come in, you want to remove and do your weeding, you know, and then get really in there. Now, top kind of inch of soil, if you can rough that up, now is a good time while the weather is still a bit warm. You won't really harm any plants, any little root systems, okay? But you can see that verbena. Now, this is nature, guys. Wind comes, animals come, they break plants, the stems go down, and the gardener might sit there and be a bit upset because, of course, well, you know, beautiful plant, beautiful flowers that we can't see. But this is a blessing in a way, because we're gonna scarify, and rain's gonna come, wind's gonna come, batter all those little guys down in there, and hopefully we'll get a nice patch of verbena here next year. So go and do that in your borders. Right, so meadow's still going in a way. I mean, Rebecca's coming up. Quite a few more. You'll have seen this featured heavily in the shorts. So I think at the start of the video I said, you know, we've done everything that we set out to do. However, we've not done the pelargonium or geranium cuttings. So I apologize. I don't think we'll get around to that in this video. If you were only watching for that, well, let me quickly show you. So I will do this in a short, but just quickly, as not to waste more of your time. You see these little fat stems in here? Little fat one. Not these thin ones, that's a flower head. Not that, that's a leaf. Little fat stems. Do you see how there's that brown cut just under that? Then you slide that brown down. That's what you plant into your little pot like a cutting, okay? That's kind of the basics. You can kind of see this broken stem here. I wish I had this about a minute ago. So that would be a good cutting. If we were to cut here on that brown, just underneath, strip that, put that in, that little node is what will develop your roots. Okay, and actually, I might go and save this little guy. Always take the spent or new flowers off, because of course we don't want flower production, we want root production. Will grow on a windowsill in your house over winter. Maybe keep them near a radiator. So I want to say thank you for watching. Hope that the tips strewn out through this video are of use or of help. I like the gardening vlog style stuff, I like the long form stuff, but of course, as you've seen, I'm also trying a couple different things. I also like the kind of sit down, write a little script, do a little bit of research and present to you some very bite-sized stuff where I hope you don't actually have to watch it, that you can consume it. You know, on a walk, learn a little bit about gardening or some gardening tips in a quick fire fashion. Whereas this is obviously a bit more gentle and a bit more personal. I still like doing this content, so you know, there still will be stuff. Still got the beginner series. I think we're going to launch that next week, taking you from nothing to beautiful garden, low budget, all the good stuff, low maintenance. I'll show you how exactly to achieve that. So I know summer wasn't great, very few sunny, beautiful, warm days, and it's getting into autumn. I mean, officially it's September 22nd, the start of autumn, and I can feel it in the garden. Everything's kind of slowing down, things are turning, you know, things are starting to get sleepy, tired, overgrown. It's a good time of year. So satisfying is that kind of cleanup job, or even just letting things rest, letting things kind of decay, and seeing those kind of browns and reds and purples start to emerge, and really appreciate it for what it is. As the sun gets lower, that angle hitting grasses and seed heads, I think, is absolutely glorious. Autumn, there's still a load of colour. There's still plants that are going to give you beautiful flowers. Things like anemones, salvias might even be having a third go at it. The rose on the rose arch is all about to burst in flower. Some asters aren't even out yet, or they're just emerging, and sedums are just emerging now as well too. So next one of these videos is going to be a planting for autumn colour. And I really hope to see you there. So remember to like, favorite and subscribe if you haven't already. Leave a comment down below, let me know your thoughts on the video. Even if you had any questions, leave them down in the comments, I'll be happy to answer. So thanks for watching and cheerio.